Welcome to the Alchemy Consulting Group Podcast. Join Arquella Hargrove, Alchemy's Chief Culture Officer, for impactful conversations with business leaders and experts who are committed to transforming their work cultures and creating inclusive work environments. Let's learn, develop, and garner best practices together. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome, everyone, to the Alchemy Consulting Group Podcast, where we distill conversations with thought leaders to bring your transformative insights and strategies. And our mission is to revolutionize organizational cultures, one business at a time. And so join us as we explore vital topics that empower our leaders and galvanize our teams and reshape the world of work. And I'm excited to have a friend, Denise Hamilton, as part of our conversation today. I've been knowing Denise for many, many years, and she's been doing some awesome work and very visible and around the conversation of equity and inclusion within our workplaces, and brand new book out. So we're going to be getting into more of that for sure. So let me kick it over to Yvonne, our co-host for today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yvonne, any words you want to say?
How are you doing, Arquella? So good to see you.
You too. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Another exciting conversation.
Of course, that's all we do here at Alchemy. And Denise, again, welcome, and love it's coming across as like a coral orange power color, but really feeling it today. Thank you so much for being here with us. And Arquella, just keep bringing these conversations. As you know, the topic or topics related to DEIB and organizational culture, people culture, gender equity, just having rounded the corner out of Women's History Month, looking forward to the balance of the year. We need these conversations to continue, and no better person to tee up for our chat this morning than Denise Hamilton. Denise, we know that you are a powerful voice in all things DEIB, but we'll dial in deeper because you also specialize in really thoughtful conversation around allyship and being an ally, and really moving us from this state of bystandership to being an upstander, and to being not only an ally, but an advocate. But don't want to get too far ahead. So Arquella, I'll send the mic back over to you, but maybe we could just kick it off with Denise telling us a little bit about herself.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. I know Denise just back in the Houston area after a big TED Talk. So Denise, please share more about your journey and just why we're here today having this important conversation.
Well, I am so thrilled to be here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I think there is no greater gift than the gift of your attention. So whenever someone invites me into their space, I just deeply appreciate it. I am an author. I guess that's how I introduce myself now. I really work at the people side of change. So whether that be DEIB, whether that be AI, whether it be remote work, how is it impacting actual people, and how do we interact with each other as positively as possible to leverage change, not to be crushed by change? So in that work, I have gotten a chance to work with leaders and employees across all kinds of organizations, all kinds of industries. And we have some challenges in front of us, right? But I'm also really encouraged because I'm seeing people really grow, really commit to the work. We hear a lot about DEI backlash, and I'm definitely seeing that as well. But I'm also seeing a doubling down and a commitment from leaders who didn't do it as a PR exercise, but really believed in it as a value. And so that's super encouraging to me. One thing you have to know about me is that I move through the world with an irrational level of optimism. I believe that the only people that can change the world are the ones who think they can. And that is what keeps me connected to this work. Like, I believe that we are just a small piece of a really long arc of people who have worked so hard for us to be able to sit in this space right now and have this beautiful conversation. So I'm excited to answer any questions and to jump into the conversation.
Great. Thank you, Denise. I love it when you say you're that people side of change, right? And that's what it ultimately is. It's all about how do we change and transform our workplace cultures, right? Where people do feel that equity, they feel that inclusivity, they feel that sense of belonging. And so thank you for that work that you're doing. Again, it's much needed, and definitely staying optimistic about, right, the future for sure. Right. We need more of that these days anyway. So, Denise, kind of describe to us kind of that journey to becoming a nationally recognized D&I leader and highly sought after speaker. What was that journey? What's been the journey?
Well, I was an executive for about 25 years. I know everybody's doing the math. I'm a lot older than I look. And had been the only woman or the only Black person in almost every job I've ever had. And because of that, I developed a certain skill set around navigating difficult environments, challenging environments. And everybody kind of wanted to pick my brain. I could have had coffee 7 times a day because everybody wanted to kind of like figure out what's the cheat code of navigating these spaces. And that's really how I transitioned into launching my company, which is like 10 years ago now. Like, I don't even, when you start counting, people start doing the math and like, wait, how old are you? But I really just started sharing that experience with women. That's really was my company's called WatchHerWork. And the focus was very much around how do you equip women to navigate these spaces? But I quickly kind of realized there's a very famous Bishop Desmond Tutu quote I love. He said, we can spend time pulling people out of the river, but at some point you have to go upriver to see who's pushing them in. Why are they falling in? And so I started really working with leaders about the cultures that they were creating. I can teach you how to navigate toxicity, or we can, I don't know, get rid of the toxicity. That's also an option. So really started working a lot with leaders, and definitely that work expanded to include racial diversity or religious diversity or, disability issues or those kinds of things. And just that's kind of how it grew and grew and grew. My business has grown. So I love it because I really believe that talking with the leaders and creating even the smallest changes, like that's how this moves forward, right? If the leader doesn't believe in it, it doesn't really matter what everybody else is doing in the organization. And so being able to be a part of those conversations has been really, really powerful and impactful.
And you bring such power to the topic, Denise, and going back to the visualization actually that you created in the beginning of our conversation. You mentioned the arc, and how it showed up in my mind space was a rainbow. And just the power of where we are in that trajectory and how we're getting close to really leaning in and finding innovative solutions. And I consider, WatchHerWork being one of those, and it's one nugget in this whole butterfly effect that we're all trying to move forward. I do have a question, but I also want to say to you that in terms of your age and how long you've worked, Arquella has some really fancy math that works for her whenever she's describing it. So offline, you may just want to get with Arquella about her new math.
I love it.
Because every time we record a podcast, I'm like, did she just get 3 to 5 years younger than the last time we just recorded 2 weeks ago?
Of course. Of course. Yeah. I've been doing it for a very long time, like in my youth.
Yeah, exactly.
Starting at age 4.
Yeah. I was navigating the workplace, right?
Yeah,
early age.
Yes. But Denise, while we have you and while we have the benefit and the blessing of your voice, let's talk specifically about women. Okay. And women of color. So really dialing in. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing women of color? What's pushing them in that river, to use your terminology? And we'll stop there. And then I'm sure Arquella will want to talk to you more about solutions. But what are the challenges?
I think that the biggest challenge facing women of color right now is the unreasonable, unrealistic expectation that we are going to be the ones that are going to change all of these cultures. We are the ones like these topics of inclusion have been largely outsourced to us, and you cannot outsource your culture. That's one of the major things I speak with leaders about. Like, if you're a leader, you need to be in charge of driving your culture. Any staff, any consultants that focus in the DEIB space, they're augments. They're here to support you in actualizing your vision for how this organization should move forward. And so when that inappropriate, in my opinion, disproportionate responsibility for the advancement of culture, for being the one that always is supposed to speak up, being the one that's supposed to go in and be in the fight. Guess what happens to the tip of the spear? It gets battered and beaten and bloodied, and we're tired. There's a lot of just exhaustion. And, it makes it really difficult. I think one of the key things I try to keep in mind in my business is to do this work from the scar, not the wound. I'm going to say that one more time. Do this work from the scar, not the wound. We need to be healed as we go into these spaces, and sometimes these spaces are not welcoming, they're hostile. We have to be whole. And so what is the mechanism that we have to truly refuel? Do you have a personal board of directors that supports you? And because sometimes if you let other people define you, they will have you thinking you are a hot mess. And it's like you need a reality check from outside of your environment that will kind of give you feedback and challenge you to grow and help you to make sure that your vision, your aperture is wide enough and you're seeing things as they actually are versus what the information you may be getting from your environment, and also your own kind of hurt or harm or exhaustion. I don't know about you, but when I'm tired, I see the world. It's harder to see kind of what's really going on and what's really necessary, what I really need to be doing. And so to me, having a community of people that supports you in the work that you're doing is just critical. So what is our path for refueling, for learning? I think we're still in a learning posture as a community in some of these executive spaces. How are we building relationships across all people? One of the biggest things I have to tell people is you don't have to have a female mentor. You don't have to have, it's okay to have a old white guy as your mentor, which somebody who knows where you're going and can help you get there because they've been there before. That's what you need. So what are the challenges in building the relationships that really take your career to the next level? And how do you manage your peace as you navigate areas that you might not always feel welcome?
Yeah, I think your call out of being tired and being fatigued is very important, especially as we talk about building community and outreaching to allies and sponsors, et cetera. Because oftentimes, Denise, I think, well, two things. I think our fatigue could be mistaken for anger, hence angry Black woman, that phraseology, or through our fatigue, our ability to manage our emotions, our ability to show up as our best selves could be impacted. So it's one of those two. But I love your reference to fatigue, because if we go to work every single day, and every day it's not only I have to do my job, but I'm the de facto D&I person, I'm your de facto people culture leader, I'm all these things, I'm spent before it's 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning, right? So I think those are some great call outs. So thank you for that.
Definitely. And I'm reminded, Denise, and this is a quote from you, right? You says that we have to define success for ourselves, define what we care about, and don't substitute the judgment of others for your own. You are the expert of you, right? And so again, that's that great reminder that that's what we need when we are trying to navigate, right, these spaces. And of course, trying to maintain our peace, to your point, for sure, and showing up whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our happiness is important, right? I love a first. Oh, the first Black woman to do this. Oh, the first Black. I love it. It's impressive. It's incredible. It's really hard. It's really draining. It can be really depleting. And what are we doing also to support people that are in these roles that when it's really challenging or they're experiencing that battle fatigue, right? Are we encouraging them? Are we lifting them up? Are we supporting them? Are we picking up the phone to say, hey girl, how are you? What's going on? Like how's everything going in the office? Like I think it's just it's important to not be addicted to toxic positivity, right? And which is weird. I know I say I'm an irrational optimist, but I do not believe in toxic positivity. I think like positivity is saying, "Oh, I hope the bus comes. I hope I hope I can catch the bus." And optimism is start running, right? Run and like do something, be active in that pursuit. So I think this idea of like, if you've gotten an amazing role or an amazing opportunity and everyone sees it through the lens of excitement, meanwhile, like the hard challenges that you have in the environment and how sometimes you have to navigate these difficult social dynamics, like allow yourself both experiences, the excitement around the role, but also the frustration and the disappointment of things not always going the way, you feel like they should go or that you need them to go. And so having a strategy about managing that, I think is just it's really important. And the best I've seen do it are very clear on their boundaries, on self-care, on who they allow to feed into them. They don't take everyone's advice. You don't take advice from someone you wouldn't you don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from, right? Like you're very careful about who you let inform your choices, and they are, radically serious about fun. They play hard, they work hard, but they also play really hard because you have to have that stress release and you have to have that positive redirection when things aren't going so great.
So I'm intrigued. Give us a couple of more examples on toxic positivity.
So this is I hope I don't get in trouble, but there's a gentleman, I forget his last name. His first name is Daryl, I believe, but he works with the KKK. He's a Black man that befriended a KKK member, and now he's credited with persuading people out of the KKK. And I have an ongoing argument with a friend of mine about this. And he's like, this is just amazing. This is an example for all of us. And I said, no, it's not. I said, it's not an example for all of us. I believe that in the honor and the dignity of every single human being, part of that honor and dignity is that you have the right and the responsibility to take responsibility for your actions and for your behavior. And that includes any harm that you have done to other groups of people. So this idea that we valorize a person that's going to put themselves in the harm and in the space of truly toxic people and celebrate that, to me, is toxic positivity, because the opposite of that is, well, if you don't do that, you're not forgiving. See, Arquella, you should be more like Daryl. Look how he doesn't hold a grudge, and look how he just goes into these toxic spaces. No, Arquella needs to be Arquella. She's doing the work, she's connecting people, and she's making incredible strides in the work that she's doing. The martyrdom of that example does not skew the expectation of every single other person that they're supposed to put themselves in danger and harm to create a better America for all of us to live in. It skews the responsibility onto us rather than them. And I don't use us and them very often. And who's my us and them? Us is people who want equality and want an America that is equitable and fair. And them are the people who actively work on a daily basis to discredit that vision. So that to me is an example of toxic positivity, like the kumbaya, we'll just all forgive. I think forgiveness that cheats us out of the lesson is damaging, right? I think you have to have thoughtful forgiveness. I am willing to engage with anybody who wants to actually engage around ideas and concepts. I'm here for it. But I don't believe in chasing people who have declared themselves as as hostile and toxic to persuade them. That is not the highest and best use of my energy. And I think in our culture, we valorize those people and use that as a comparison set. That if you don't do that work, something's wrong with you. You're not merciful and just and kind. And so that to me is a great example of toxic positivity.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Denise. Yeah, just I could see it right as you're talking through it. It's like, okay, I can see this right visually, how this looks, how this shows up for sure. And so really want to really kind of shift into, you've given some great points when you think about advice and just how women, in particular women of color, can navigate, right? I love that, clear on their boundaries, that self-care, right? Playing hard, being able to take advice from others. And just want a couple of other points I really want you to really lean into is when you think about, again, the work that you're doing around allyship, right? And just understanding that language matters. Who is an ally? And then I want you to share what is the difference between an ally and an advocate. Then we hear supporter, we hear sponsor, we hear you mentioned mentor and coach, and just really kind of talk through, right? What are those differences there?
Such a great question, and such a tough question right now, right? One of the biggest challenges facing us, I think, as a nation, is our language is so compromised, right? That's the only word I can use, is compromised, where you'll say the same concept and everybody has a different definition of what that term means and what that phrase means. So I'm very careful. So I don't try to get super hung up on the terminology. I really focus on, how do I want you to feel, right? Or what do I want the outcome to be? To me, where we need support is profound advocacy when we are not in the room. Somebody who lifts up our name, puts us in the conversations. I mean, since my book came out, I have been blown away by people who have just sent it. I mean, my book is sitting in the White House right now, right? I don't know anybody in the White House, right? Like, that's what you need. You need somebody that's going to advocate for you and like shout your name from the rafters and your accomplishments in rooms that you do not have the authority, capacity, or relationships to get into. That's the holy grail of all of this, right? Like, I believe in mentorship. I think it's incredibly important. I think we need to stop walking up to people and say, will you be my mentor? I think nobody wants to do that. It's very scary. Like, it's like, will you be my mother? Right? Like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that commitment is. Right? So I think there's some like charging in that language as well. Really, what I want is to be able to have a place that is a touch point for the key questions that I need answered to advance in my career, right? So who is that? Who's willing to do that? So a one piece of coaching I give, especially to young professionals and mid-career professionals, is, don't ask somebody to be your mentor. Ask them for 15 minutes to ask them a specific good question, right? And ask that question well. Don't ask them a question you could have Googled. Don't ask them an obvious question. Ask them a question that says you are really a student of the space, and they will respond to your energy. 15 minutes can turn into an hour like that, and an hour can turn into an ongoing relationship. Let somebody choose you to be a mentee. Right? I just find that is way more successful as an effort. But this idea of seeking out people who have the kind of path laid out. And I will say this too, there's another like kind of spoiler of this kind of mentor-mentee conversation. Everybody that is in a position of that like looks great and is someplace you want to be cannot be your mentor. Some of them, they don't know how to tell you how to get the job that they have because they didn't get it through traditional methodologies. People ask me all the time, how do I get a book deal? I don't know. Right. I literally, my book story is Adam Grant heard me on Clubhouse. We struck up a friendship and he said, you need to write a book. And he introduced me to top literary agents in the country, and I got a book deal. That is not how most people are going to get a book deal. So we have a lot of people who act like they can tell you what the path is. They don't tell you that their uncle was the chairman of the board. They don't tell you that their sister, is married to the president of the company. So we need to be really careful and make sure when we're talking to people and seeking out that mentorship, that those people actually have the slightest idea what the path is to get to the place that you want to be, because everybody doesn't have the script the way we might think they do. But I think this idea of strengthening your network post COVID, I don't know what you ladies are experiencing, but I feel like so many social networks have just frayed. There are people I used to see, even Arquella and I live in the same city. And I feel like before COVID, I used to see you all the time. And now it's like, well, there aren't as many events and people don't come to as many events and things are more online and it's still kind of shaky. So what is the effort that you're going to put in to reignite those networks that you spent years building in your career? Are you reaching out to people on LinkedIn? Are you asking for, hey, let's just jump on a quick call for 10 minutes and just catch up of how are things going? It takes intentionality and it takes a lot of effort. But I have to tell you, if your early career and you have already lost all of the relationships you've already been, like, I personally have never applied for a job. Every job I have gotten, it has been through recruitment, referral, whatever. So what are people going to do if they don't have those relationships? They don't have those places that, those people that know their abilities and can lift their names up in certain situations. So that network that we've allowed to kind of dwindle post-COVID, we have to re-engage it. And I put it on my calendar every week to spend an hour or two just doing that. And if you do that, I believe it'll pay back in spades, because we are still a relationship culture, right? And especially in executive spaces, that's how you get ahead. So if there's one piece of really important advice I want our listeners to digest, is that is as much a part of your job, a success, as your skill development, as your competence, capability. It's what is your network and how are you rebuilding it post-COVID?
Yeah. And maybe to build on Denise, it was either you said pay back or pay forward. I can't remember which term you use. I think both apply to my thinking, though. It's time to shift the energy and stop showing up, if this is indeed what's happening for some people, on I want you to be this for me, my mentor, my sponsor. Especially if you're mid-career and above, how do you show up and mentor people? How do you show up and sponsor and coach and advocate for other people? And specifically for women of color and for Black women, that should not just be a network of same.
Yes.
We have to support each other. That's something that's very important, but we should be mentors to white men. Absolutely. We should be mentors and sponsors to Latinas, to Asian males, to whatever that looks like. But I guess, so it's two parts. So if we're just out there saying, hey, I need this, we need to refocus and say, I can give this. Mm-hmm. And then we need to make sure that we're giving in a way that we're saying we want to receive it. And that we're giving to people who are different than us.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I think also there's this weird kind of expectation. Well, I'm a Black woman executive. So that means I'm supposed to mentor every Black woman in the company. Oh, that's not what it means. That's not what that means. You're not entitled to my mentorship. And I've seen so many, unfortunately, I've seen so many young people approach people with that energy. And it's like, that's not how that works, right? Like, the currency that I have built throughout my career, I choose where I spend it, not you, right? And so there's a respect that we need to have in those relationships. But I also could not agree with you more. The importance of mentoring people outside of our groups, like that that's almost more powerful in a lot of ways, because you're normalizing Black female leadership. That's what we want. We want people to think, of course, Black women are amazing employers or amazing leaders. I know because I had this mentor and she did this and she was amazing in this way and that, and I learned this from her. That is such a powerful kind of, viral message to trickle through the organization. We have to model what we want to see, right? What we want to see more of. We need to embody that in ourselves. So I just couldn't agree more.
That's awesome. Well said, Denise. Well said. And, I'm a big believer again in the relationship. Someone said, everything that we need or want is in a relationship, right? And so we're here based on relationships, for sure. So I'm excited again just for all that you have shared. And definitely, again, the book is Indivisible: How to Forge Our Differences into a Stronger Future. I love it. I love it. And someone said it is the guidance for the business of living, right? And so I'm excited about that. And so just a final question here, Denise, is that, what advice, when you think about women of color entering into the workforce, and what advice do you give them to help them make their career journeys more prosperous, right? You've shared some here, but what is just some laser focused advice that you would provide as we're closing out today?
Gosh, we hear a lot about how divided we are as a country, how we've never been more polarized, and that's not true. We literally fought a civil war. Like, we absolutely have been here before, and the lessons that we take from that. Well, the whole exercise would have been a waste if we don't learn from that experience, right? One of the things that I've been really struck by is how we have been talked out of our power. We are, as we sit here in the United States of America, among the most powerful people in the world. That's just the truth. But we move through this world like we are hopeless and helpless. And the biggest challenge that I would give to Black women professionals is don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't believe everything you're told. My personal muse is Harriet Tubman. I think about this woman enslaved in the 1800s, couldn't read, couldn't write, had a seizure disorder. She had been brutalized as a child and had a seizure disorder. She didn't have a map. She didn't have a horse. She didn't know anybody in the North. And she ran by herself from the South to the North to her freedom. And if the story stopped right there, it would have been amazing. But she turned around and she came back time and time again. She got 3 people, then 5 people, then 4 people. Then it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. We don't have less assets, less resources, less information than Harriet Tubman had. We have more. What we have less of is courage, commitment, consistency. And I think my challenge is that we reconnect the power that sits within us to change things, to make things happen, to create the world that we want to see. And sometimes that's going to happen with incremental changes, like Harriet, 3, then 4, then 5. But if we're consistent, we get the changes that we want to see happen in the world. I have to be really honest. When Barack Obama announced that he was running for president, I laughed out loud. I thought it was ridiculous. I thought we would never have a Black president in our lifetime. And not only did he do it once, he did it twice. So what I learned from that lesson is we cannot allow the disappointments of yesterday to cheat us out of the opportunities for tomorrow. We just can't. So I'm so grateful for those women who step into those rooms that might not always be welcoming, who speak up in that boardroom when everyone disagrees with them, and who is like they're chipping away and creating that next America, the next chapter. I'm so grateful for every single one of us that does that. And I'm proud of us. So my advice is don't forget who you are. Don't forget how powerful you are and what changes and impacts you are making every day simply by just being in the room and being your excellent self.
Mm.
Can
Well
I just
said.
see
Well
you
said.
every morning, Denise, and you just say something to me?
I know. I know. I know. That's so empowering, right? And
Exactly.
just a reminder that we are the strongest. We're the survivors of the strong.
And we are
And
the
so,
thrivers. And we're
yes,
moving into thriving, honey. I'm not here to just survive. I want to thrive. And so I
absolutely.
love the soft life movement. I love all this. I love going on Instagram and seeing Black women travel all over the world. Like, we're
Mm.
free. We're free.
Yeah.
We're powerful. We're capable. People worked so that we could be. So how
Mhm.
dare we not live in joy? How dare
Yes.
we? Are you kidding me? So yes, let's do it. Let's do it, friends.
I love it.
Arquella, before you close us out, though, I'd like to ask Denise just one more question. So, Denise, everything that you said, on point, powerful, my heart's warm, it's jumping out of my chest. But I want to be careful that we're still not just talking to Black women. Okay. How do we talk to organizations? How do we talk to C-suite leaders? How do we talk to HR directors? And give us one action that we can say to organizations so that for that Black woman who's coming with the joy, who's mentoring, who's being mentored, what can the organization do to create that atmosphere, that eco space that allows her to grow and to thrive?
I think everyone says they want change, but they're not willing to change. Right. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have. If you, it, I'll take a perfect example. One, I can't believe I'm still living. It's a situation we're dealing with right now. A company that doesn't have a ladies' room on the executive floor of like, what are we talking about? Are we still doing this? I couldn't believe it. Right. But that's a perfect example of you let someone come into the space, but have you welcomed them into the space? Have you altered the space in such a way that they can thrive in the space? That's a different layer. That's the inclusion piece of this, right? It's easy to take a Noah's Ark, two of each kind approach, right? Like that's kind of the easiest part. But I hear a lot of leaders complain, Denise, we recruit them, but they won't stay. And I say, what did you do to make them stay? What did you do to help them stay? What did you change about your culture? You want women to work here, but you're still doing meetings at strip clubs. Do you want women to work here, but you're still, you have a group of men who says because they're worried about being Me Too'd, they won't take a woman to lunch or they won't have meetings with a woman alone in their office. Right? Like you're still doing the same things, but you expect a different result. So my challenge to leaders is, what are you willing to change to get the change you say you want? What are you willing to give up? We love our stories. Our stories tell us who the hero is, who the villain is, who gets to live happily ever after. The problem is a lot of our stories aren't true. So one of the things I have to do with leaders when I meet with them is get them to put their stories on the table and pick them apart and make sure what we want to keep and what we want to throw away. Because if you have a story that you can only be the leader of a team if you are a 6'3" man with a heavy voice, well, that leaves out an awful lot of people. I think that 5'2" woman, that soft spoken man, I think they can be fantastic leaders too. And you're feeding them out of those opportunities if your story is a leader looks and sounds like this. So there's some letting go that needs to happen, desperately needs to happen, if we really are going to ever have a chance to grab the world we say we want.
Oh,
Yeah.
bravo.
Well said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We need a road show, Denise.
Yeah.
I would love it. Call me. Call
Let's
me.
take this on the road.
And we could start right here in Houston.
Exactly,
Yes,
exactly,
absolutely.
exactly. This has been a joy, Denise. And just thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your friendship. And just thank you for the difference that you're making in the world. It's much needed. So definitely thank you. And this wraps up another dialogue right here at Alchemy Consulting Group Podcast, and want to thank everyone for tuning in and engaging with us on this journey towards enriching organizational cultures and leadership. And remember that each conversation is a step towards transformation. And so asking everyone to continue to lead and innovate and thrive until we connect again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to the Alchemy Consulting Group Podcast. Follow this podcast on social media and help continue the conversation by sharing your business and leadership best practices. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you consume yours, and share this podcast with your organizations and networks. Let's strengthen the community of those committed to responsible leadership and work environments where everyone can thrive.